Good evening, grade 9s, and welcome to lesson 7. What can we do to conserve biological diversity? I hope you read pages 72 to 78 in your textbook. Let's get started. You need to get this handout from myself, Mrs. Carter. You'll cut out these squares. You'll take each square and glue it into the corresponding part of your handout. So it actually goes, this is the first group we're going to do, down here, here, and here. It's absolutely in order. Let's get started. So protected areas, glue your protected area square here. So these are provincial parks. They're protected area strategies such as recreation areas, ecological preserves, and national parks. This is also known as in situ conservation, where you're conserving a species in their natural habitat. Write this in there. You're missing this. So some successes are there's linked areas that together that allow for movement and exchange of genetic materials with organisms. So for example, there's a wolf up in Jasper National Park. They are able to get down to Banff National Park to mate. This allows for variety in the genes, okay? It allows the organisms to live relatively undisturbed. Now some limitations is there's not enough land, space or habitat to support all native species or a great diversity. This is why it's not perfect. And it also depends on the cooperation of people and government. As soon as people no longer want to protect those species, it's pretty hard for the government to pay for these programs to be in place. So for your restoration for ecosystems and species right here, please. And these are programs to restore endangered species and damaged habitats to a healthy state. Our successes are charities, non-profit organizations, volunteer groups, and private landowners can contribute. A really successful thing about Alberta was the reintroduction of the swift fox. At one point it was endangered, and because of all these programs in place, is no longer endangered. Right now the Edmonton Valley Zoo has something called the Red Panda Project, and this is basically where the Edmonton Valley Zoo is collecting donations to help the red pandas in their natural habitats in Asia so they can get more space and buy more land for these pandas and do other such things like pay for people to protect them. Some big limitations is it requires a lot of time and money, and not everyone wants to spend money on animals. Okay, so the resource policies they're basically laws. So resource policies are laws that protect species. So this could be a hunting law, how much you can capture, what you can pick, what you can't pick, times a year, if you can transplant things from country to country or province to province. So some great successes that we're going to look at is basically it was signed all across Canada. Every province, every territory agreed that these laws are extremely important. Because of this, the government was able to put money towards programs and therefore hire people to enforce these laws, like your wildlife officers and people like that. Okay, and there's lots of programs to protect the species, which is awesome. So I would find, but limitations is once again, people don't always obey the law, and it depends on the people. So people might say, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna kill whatever I feel like it, and some don't. And also there's some people who actually depend on hunting for their jobs. And if you limit how much, say, deer are allowed to hunt, that could severely impede on their overall income, and therefore they could become dependent on the government once again for social services. So controlling the spread of exotic species. This is basically when you take a species and you introduce them into a new environment and they're able to thrive and grow in that environment. So some great success about controlling this is that volunteers can help, and the federal, provincial, municipal governments contribute to develop policies to prevent exotic species from spreading. So they put programs in place. So say, for example, if someone has a pet turtle, there's programs in place to get rid of those turtles so people are not just releasing them out into the wild, like cats and dogs, like the Edmonton Valley Zoo and stuff. So some severe limitations are basically, once again, depends on people. If people choose not to do this, well, they're going to be unsuccessful. So conservation genetic resources, almost done, my friends. This is any activity that helps store as many gene varieties as possible. We talked about in situ conservation, and I'd like you to add ex situ conservation. This happens in zoos, or basically when you're not in the natural habitat. So it's conservation not in the natural habitat. So some great successes are that basically there are seed banks that store seeds from a variety of crops, and captive breeding programs mainly run by zoos. Some limitations is that basically the sperm and eggs, you can't really store those. They don't survive for long periods of time. And the last one is not all animals will breed in captivity. That's all I got. Have a great night.